Welcome back to Strength Coach Tutorials, and in today's tutorial we're going to do some calculations with training load. We're going to learn how to create a drop-down menu where we can select any athlete and have the training load graph automatically update. We're going to learn how to set rolling averages on both a team and individual basis, and then how to change the duration of those rolling averages so that it updates on our chart. This is going to be really useful for anyone who's tracking RPEs or other types of training load with their athletes or clients. So let's get after it. Okay, so as you can see, we're starting with a relatively blank canvas here. The only things that I've gone ahead and set up ahead of time is I have a table here which has all of our training load data in it. And this is formatted as a table, and as you can see, it just has your RPE and time data, and then this is being calculated into a training load. So we have athlete 1, and then I've just gone ahead and put in some data. We have January 1st through 20th, and then athlete 2, the same thing, January 1st through 20th. Then the next piece of data is the type of session that it was for, and then this is somewhere where you could put in practice or strength conditioning session or energy system training or really whatever it is you're tracking. And then the next thing that we're tracking is an RPE out of 10, 1 to 10 scale, 10 being the most brutal workout you've ever done, and a 1 being way too easy, probably should have had to do a little bit more. And then time in minutes. And then at the end here, we're just calculating a training load off of that. We're just taking RPE and multiplying it by time so that we get our training load in arbitrary units. So this is where we're going to start with this data, and then we're going to learn how to do the rolling averages and the chart and pull all that data into another table that is going to be a little easier for us to manage. Now, before we get dug into this, I'm just going to remind you that if these videos are helping you out, please like and subscribe to the channel. And if you could share this video with anyone you think would find it useful, that would be really helpful. And if you could comment on this video and tell me maybe some of the topics that you want me to cover in future videos, that would be helpful as well. So let's get on with this project. Now, whenever we're working with tables, the best thing to do is to name those tables so that you know exactly what you are working with. And then that makes it really easy for me to reference those tables later on. So I'm going to name this table, and the way to do that is just click anywhere inside of the table. And then if you go up to the top under table design, you can see it's called table 1 right now. I'm just going to name that TBL and then RPE. And that just gives me an idea what table I'm referring to. And obviously this is the table that is tracking our RPE data. Now, what I want to be able to do is actually pull out the relevant information from this table and pull it into a separate sort of either table or chart or area where I can reference that information and then put it into a graph so that I can easily see what the trends are in my actual training load. And what I want to be able to do is I want to have some sort of filter where I can select the name of the athlete that I want to pull their training data in, and I want to have it work basically forever so that if I add more data to the bottom, it's always going to work. So we're going to set it up with that in mind, and here we go. So the first thing we're going to set up is this drop-down menu, which has our athlete name in it. So I'm just going to highlight that yellow so that we know where it's going to go. And what I need to do is actually just put a spot where we can start to track those athlete names. And we're going to use a function called unique. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put equals unique. And if you've watched my videos, in the past, you'll know that I like this method for accomplishing this task. So unique, and then open the brackets, and then it's going to ask me what's the array I want. And I'm just going to select the athlete names column. And I can actually probably close that off, and you're going to see that it gives me all of my athlete names. And if I was to change any one of these to Dave or John or Joseph what you're going to notice, I spelled that terribly, but anyways, what you're going to notice is that it adds those names to that list, which is great because we want to make sure that anytime we're tracking data or if we add new athletes, that this function always works. And the reason that it does that is because this is what's called a spilled array, and it just takes all the data, and as long as there's nothing in the way, it'll keep spilling that data all the way down. So whenever you're working with spilled arrays, it's important to keep underneath them very clear. So now that I have that settled, what I can do is create a drop-down menu that references this spilled away. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to select where I want to be able to have the drop-down menu for my athletes. So in this case, it's I1. I've highlighted it yellow to know that that's where I want to put it. I'm going to go to data, data validation, and then make a list. And my source is I'm actually going to select that cell H2. And at the end of it, I'm going to put a hashtag and hit OK. And what the hashtag means is that I want it to refer to the whole spilled array. So what you'll see is I have that drop-down menu. And again, if I was to put some more names in here, what you're going to see is those automatically appear in my drop-down menu. So let's put athlete 1 all the way through. So that's part 1. We have a spot where we can actually select our athlete name. So part 2. Now we actually have to pull out some of the data from which we're going to reference. So the first thing we're going to use is a filter function, and I'm going to use underneath date, it's going to equal filter, and then I'm going to open that up. It's going to ask me what the array that I want to use is, and I'm going to do table RPE, and I want the date column. And if I start to type it in, Excel is going to automatically fill that in. If I just hit tab and then close it off, it's going to select that column. And I want to only select it, RPE, date, if, I want to only select it if the athlete name column is equal to the athlete name that we've selected. And then I should be able to close this off and it should give me all of my dates. But what you'll notice is they're not formatted as dates, so I'm just going to change that around. So all I'm going to do is select this column and hit home, format. We'll make it more number formats, custom date. So we'll go YYYY equals MM equals DD, hit OK. And you can see now it's formatted all those to dates, but because I did it that way, it's also going to format these first 3 cells to dates. So I'm just going to put those back to general so that I don't run into any formatting issues later on. But basically this whole column now should be dates. So that's how we filter out the date. But what if we had a situation where these dates weren't in order? So what I want to actually be able to do is sort them from smallest to largest so that the dates are always in ascending order. So I'm going to wrap this whole filter function in a sort function. So at the beginning of my filter function, I'm going to type sort, open that up, and the array is this actual filter function. Then the sort index doesn't matter for this particular equation. And then the sort order is going to be ascending. So I'm going to put a 1 in there. And then I'm going to do another comma, and this part doesn't matter either. And then when I close that off, you'll notice that nothing changes because my dates were already in order in my main table. But if they were not, then this is going to make sure that they are now in order. I'm just going to put those in the middle so that it looks proper. Okay, so then the next thing that I want to filter out is the actual type of session. So I'm going to use that filter formula one more time. So I'm going to put equals filter. And in this case, we want to filter out the session type. So I can select that column. And then my dimensions, I'm going to have a couple now. So I want TBL, RPE, date. Sorry, we'll go athlete name first. So TBL, RPE, athlete name. And we want that to be equal to I1, where we're storing the athlete name, and then close that off. And then when I want to add another dimension in the filter function, when I hit the star, Now I can add another dimension that I need it to actually refer to. So in this case, we're going to do TBL date, and then we want it whenever it's greater than or equal to our current date that we're pulling out, which in this case is going to be stored in I4. And when I close that off, what it should give me is, when I make sure that I have all the right parentheses in there, when I close that off, what it should give me is all of the S and C sessions. So the reason it gave me the arrow is I just was missing one of the brackets, and when I hit OK, now I should have all of the S and C sessions kind of in there. So that works now. The next thing that we're going to want to pull out is our actual training load. So in this case, we're going to actually want a sum ifs. And the reason we want a sum ifs is because we might have multiple training load entries on the same day. So we want to sum all of the training loads from the same day. So what I'm going to type in is equal sum ifs. And what this allows me to do is take the sum of a range based on a bunch of criteria. In the same way that we were using the filter function, now we can actually use the sum ifs function. So what I want is I'm going to take the sum of the TBL RPE training load column, and I want to take that when TBL date, and then the way that you do this, so that's the criteria range, and then the criteria that I want it to match is I want it to be equal to I4 sort of all the way down. So we put that hashtag in there. So what this is saying is take the sum of RPE when the date is equal to I4, which in this case is January 1st, and then it will go to January 2nd, etc. And when TBL RPE athlete name is is I1, okay, and I'm gonna put what's it called, dollar signs around there to lock that in, and then when I close this off, it should sum up all of the training loads for all of the days. And we know this is working because if I was to change this, then it's going to give me that value. But also if I were to change this date to 2001, it's going to give me the same value, or it's going to sum the values for that. So I'm just going to put that back. So that works. Now, what we're going to have to put is an actual rolling average function. So this is going to be where we actually type in our rolling average. So I'm going to put the number 7 in there because I'm going to be actually taking a 7-day rolling average. So the function that we're going to use here is going to be the average ifs function. And I'm going to do the team average one first because it has less dimensions than the athlete rolling average. So the team function is going to be equals average ifs, and then open this up, and we want the training load. So we want to average the training load when the date is comma quotations, because we're going to put our greater than or equals. So we want it when it's less than or equal to and I4. And I'm going to lock that in dollar signs. So we want to take the date when it's less than or equal to I4, and then comma, and I'm going to just copy that over because it's going to be very, very similar. And we want to take it when it's greater than or equal to I4, but minus L2, where we've stored our rolling average date. And then when I close that off, what you'll notice is it's going to give me all of the rolling averages. I'm going to center justify those. So just to reiterate that formula, we want average when we want the average of table RPE training load when the date is less than or equal to I4, in this case January 1st, when the date is greater than or equal to I4 minus L2. So in this case, January 1st minus 7, which is in December. Okay, so there are no dates less than that, so it is just taking that average. Okay, but it's averaging both athlete 2 and athlete 1 in this case. So we can actually copy that same formula, and I'll exit out of this, and I'm going to put it in here. But we have to add one more dimension to make it the rolling average for the athlete. So you probably already guessed what we have to do here, but we also have to put the athlete names in there too. So after that, we'll put one more comma, and we want when table athlete name is the athlete name that we have selected, in this case I1, and I'm going to put $signs around that to lock it in and hit OK. So that's all of our math that we have to kind of take care of for this formula, and you can see that it all updates if we choose athlete 2, or if we change this to say a 4-day rolling average, or a 2-day, or a 3-day, or maybe a 14-day, which isn't going to change all that much because there aren't that many sort of days. If I'm going to put it back to 7, and so that's how we do sort of our averages. Now the next thing that we want to do is create our chart. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to select this first value here, and I'm going to make a named range. And the way that I do that is I go to formulas, define name, and I want it to refer to the whole spilled array. So what it's telling me is it refers to SCT54 video, but I4. But I want it to refer to the whole spilled array. So if you remember how we do that, we just put a hashtag at the end of it, and I'm going to call this video date, so I know which one I'm referring to, and hit OK. And I'm going to do the same thing for training load, define name. I want it to refer to the whole thing, so hashtag video training load, hit OK. And then we'll go define name. We want this one to be video roll average, and then we'll put the hashtag in there, and then the last one, define name, video team roll average, hashtag in there, hit OK. Now let's make our chart. So I'm going to highlight all of the date column, hold control, highlight the training load, team rolling average, and rolling average column, and I'm going to go to insert and then recommended charts, and it's going to give me this one here, and I'll hit OK. But I don't like the way that that looks exactly. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so while we work on it. I'll take the title out because this is only going to show one thing, so we'll know what that refers to. And then we're going to change these around a little bit. So the actual training load, if I right click and hit change series chart type, I can change that to a column. So I think that looks pretty good for training load. And then the rolling average, if I actually format data series and go over to the paint bucket icon, let's change that maybe to red and give it sort of a dotted type line. And then the team one, same thing. I already have this format data series open, paint bucket. Maybe that one we make it orange and we give it sort of a dotted line so that we know where those are. And then you can see we have the actual legend along the bottom. Now the last thing that we have to do is we have to change these so that they update forever and they're not just referring to this block of cells. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to right click here and hit select data, and under training load I'm going to hit edit, and instead of what we called it, I'm going to have to call it video training load. So I just take out where it says K4 to K23, and I'm just going to put in our name there, which is video training load, hit OK, video roll average, hit OK, and then edit, video team roll average, hit OK. So you can see those all worked. And now this is referring to the named range, which is going to refer to all the cells instead of the actual cells that we had selected. So hit OK. and then I should be able to select my athlete, and it should automatically update my graph. And if I were to change my rolling average a little bit, it's going to automatically do that sort of animation for me. So that's just an easy way that in a little bit of math, you can start to calculate out different training load metrics that you might find useful, and then also give it a quick visualization so that you can start to put those in your reports and different charts that you might be handing to coaches or showing to athletes or whatever you might need. So I hope that this trick helps you out. And if you like the video, please like and subscribe to the channel, and you can follow me on social media at DSMStrength. And I will see you in the next video.